So we are going to start with the chapter networking. So let us cover basics since it's a kind of revision for you all. So we'll cover these basic definition little fast. As you all know, networking in Java is based on the concept of socket. There are two types of sockets. One is server socket and another is client socket. But the client socket is said only socket. It is known as only socket. I mean, there is no prefix as client. So it is just a socket. And at the server side, the special socket, which has the ability to connect or connect to the client's request, that is called a server socket. So let us see these two classes in detail in the following chapter. So first, let us know socket identifies an endpoint in a network. So whenever we have a communication taking place in Java, when we want two programs to communicate with each other, we are going to have it in the form of a socket. So it will be something like this. So at both the points, there exists a socket which will actually communicate from one point to another. Now, whenever there is a request for the information, the communication takes place with the particular, or you can say communication means always there will be exchange of information. So when the exchange of information takes place, the information will be of particular type. So depending on the type of the information, there are particular ports which are reserved. So port is, you can consider port as a specialized type of socket which can connect to, and a server can connect to multiple clients at the same time. So whenever clients request for, suppose this is a client, now whenever multiple clients request, this is a server. So a server, even though the request is for the same port, still what happens is whenever a request comes, server starts with a new thread. That's why since Java has multi-threading ability, the server starts a new thread, so there will be no what you can say disturbance between the communication which it has with different clients. So every thread runs independently. If they require processor time at the same time, then it will be in the time sharing mode, etc. So there will be no disturbance of each other. So let us continue with the next concept. So sockets are the foundation of modern networking. Socket allows a single computer to serve many different clients at the same time. Now, a server process listens to a port until a client connects to it. Now, a server is allowed to accept multiple clients connected to the same port number, and everybody's session will be unique. Then let us see about the basic terms. What is whenever there is a communication between two PCs, it is governed by protocols. So protocols are nothing but the rules and regulations which should be followed by both the endpoints that take part in the communication. So as you all know that the connections between the two PCs are of two types. One is called as connection-less and connection-oriented. So let me brief you quickly about this. Connection-less means uh, there is no fixed path. Connection-less, that doesn't mean there doesn't exist a path. There is no fixed path between the 2 points. So there is no reserved path as such. That is called as connection-less. Connection-oriented means always before the communication starts, the path will be established, it will be fixed, and then the communication start. I always give the example of, suppose if some minister has to visit uh, some place, then what happens is, suppose a prime minister has to come to Belgaum for some work, and then there is a schedule of prime minister that he is supposed to visit Gupte College of Commerce. Then from the, maybe from Sambra where he has landed, from there till Gupte College, that road will be reserved for prime minister. That means a connection is established before he starts traveling. It will be reserved and no other vehicle will be allowed to pass during that time when the prime minister is supposed to travel. So connection oriented communication happens something like this. First a path will be reserved, and then it will be reserved for that particular what you can say, the 2 points to communicate. No other species or no other communication will not be allowed in between. So this is called as connection oriented. Connectionless means there is no fixed path. It is something as we travel. So suppose if some road is closed, nobody will reserve a path for us, isn't it? Now at least you can see there are so many barricades. Of course, we are not supposed to go out. But suppose for some work, if we go out, we see a barricade at the RPD, then we may go from Saraf colony, something like that. So in connectionless, it happens the same. The packet starts traveling, the road is not fixed, the route is not fixed. If one route has a problem, it will try to travel through another route, something like that. Anyways, so let us see the protocols. First protocol is IP. IP stands for Internet Protocol. It is low level routing protocol. It works for connection oriented, that breaks the data into small packets and sends them to an address across the network. Then there is a TCP. TCP is again a connection-oriented protocol that provides a reliable flow of data between two computers. It provides a point-to-point channel for reliable communication. Anyways, you don't have this in detail, but I have added in the textbook also. They have not given detailed definition, but sometimes they ask for 2 marks. These all definitions, so that's why I have taken extra notes here, added extra notes. No, now then there are different types of what you can say, types of information which travels. HTTP, FTP, these are the in the form of protocols which are responsible to transmit one particular kind of data. As you all know, TCP guarantees that the data sent from one end of the connection actually reaches the other end in the same order as it was sent. So this is the quality of connection oriented, that the data travels in the same sequence as it is sent from the source. It is something like suppose some KG students or the nursery students, if they are told to come from their, suppose you take the example of KLS school. From KLS school, the KG nursery class students are told to go to library, Gokte College library. Then how they will travel? They will not be let free. One monitor or the teacher will guide them. They'll be in the front and they will go in one row, and in the same sequence all the students will travel. They will not go out of the queue. This is what happens in TCP. All the packets will travel in the same direction, in the same path, and in the same sequence. So at the receiver side, there is less chance that the packet will get lost. At the, what you can say, the communication is guaranteed at the other end, that all the packets will reach. Unlike that, user datagram protocol, which is known as UDP. This is for connectionless communication. What happens in UDP is packets are independently sent. For example, if it is not nursery class students, if they are 8, 9 standard students, and they are told that after the lunch break, they are supposed to gather at Gokte College library. Then since they are not small kids, nobody will lead them. They are just shown that there is a library. And then after the lunch break, each student will come in their own way. Some may come from the ground, some may come from the PUC building. Some of them may come from even Gupte College. They will take a round turn and they will come to library. So this is how in connectionless, the packets may travel in different route, and then they may arrive in different order. The order in which they are sent from the source may not be the same as it is reached at the destination. But UDP, as compared to TCP, it is considered to be fast. Fast because the packets need not wait for the front packets to go. They can travel, and if one route has a problem, they can take another route. Anyways, so the quality of UDP is arrival of packets is not guaranteed, arrival order is not guaranteed, and then it is used only when the speed is essential than the reliability. Yeah, let us define port. Ports are the numbered sockets. Data transmitted over the internet with addressing information identifies the computer, that is the destination system, and also it identifies the port for which it is sent the information. Example of ports are HTTP. uh, Normally when the URL starts with HTTP, the port is HTTP and the port number is 80. Then always when the URL starts with a particular port, uh, the computer or that particular socket will search for that particular port number. So ports are identified by 16-bit number, which ranges from 0 to 65,535. Port 0 to 1023 are called well-known ports. They are reserved for well-known services. For example, 20 to 21, 20 and 21 is assigned for FTP, 23 is assigned to telnet services, 80 is assigned for HTTP. So whenever URL starts with HTTP, sometimes you can even replace it with the IP address which contains the port number as 80. Anyways, so after defining port, let us define quickly client and server. Server is a machine that has some resource that it can share. It may be a file resource or database or any kind of resource. Client is a machine that wants to gain access to a particular server. The server is permanently available resource, that it will be open. It is like a shop which will be open. So whenever client comes, that shop will serve and again it will be open. So till the shopkeeper is serving one client, the other client has to wait. Similarly, when the server gets connected with one client, it keeps it blocked, that connection. Of course, parallelly it can cater to many clients' requests, but um, sometimes, suppose in case of reserved resources, it will be that communication will be blocked until it closes the connection. Yeah, this is server and client. Then there is proxy server. Sometimes when all the clients do not have access to a server, then only some people, for example, um, every student, of course, every student can go and talk to Venugopal sir, that is fine. But suppose if there is any problem, the provision is made of CR and LR, that instead of each and every student coming and telling Venugopal sir, the problems can be told to CR and LR and they will go and talk to Venugopal sir. So this will, what you can say, this will save the time and it will go through the channel. Similarly, if we have to tell our department's problem to principal, we don't directly go. We tell it to Venugopal sir and Venugopal sir takes it to principal sir. Similarly, when every client cannot connect to server, what do we do is there will be some specialized machines called as proxy server. The client will go and talk to proxy server. Proxy server in turn on behalf of client will connect it to the actual server. So this was just some extra definition for you. Then we have seen the examples of the protocols. Sometimes they'll ask you to define protocols. So protocols are the rules that facilitate communication between the clients. Examples of protocols are HTTP, UDP, IP, TCP, FTP, SMTP. Then HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Normally, whenever the web pages are transmitted from one end to another, this is the protocol followed, and it is also a port number. Then there is internet addressing, or called as IP address. An IP address is a number that uniquely identifies each machine on the internet. So as you all know that each of the student from the university is identified by the university seat number. Everyone's university seat number is unique. So similarly, IP address of every machine is unique on the internet. In the world, no two IP addresses will be same. If they are given the same IP addresses, the internet or whenever the service start, it will give an error that there is a conflict between the IP addresses. Anyways, originally, an IP address was made up of 32 bits values organized as four 8-bit values. That means there are four parts of 8-bit values. So this address type was specified by IPv4. So there was a protocol version 4 which was known as IPv4 in that system, old. This IP address pattern was, it was 32 bits and organized into 4 parts of 8 bits each. Now we also have another version of internet protocol, and that is called as IPv6. It uses 128-bit value to represent an address organized into 16-bit values. But now still till now commonly we use IPv4 only. So let us look at the example later. Then we have domain naming service. The 4 numbers of an IP address describe a network hierarchy from left to right. Anyway, so to give you an example, suppose there is an IP address called as 192.168.99.137. This is the IP address of my machine. Then this IP address is always read from left to right. That means what? It always goes in a hierarchy. Suppose now let us take the example of nowadays, of course, nobody sends letters, but take the example that somebody has sent a letter to you. That letter, suppose if it has come from some outside country, then first that letter will come to India. Then from India it will come to Karnataka. From Karnataka it will come to Belgaum district. From Belgaum district it will come to Belgaum city. Then it will come from that to your area. Similarly, this hierarchy here, 192 indicates that particular place. Under 192, 168. From 168 it will go to 199. And under 99 there could be many systems which are connected. Then it will come to 137, that is specifically my PC. So this is how IP addresses are read. Unlike that, suppose whenever we give any address, like for example, um, yeah, gccbca.org. So suppose this is like this. Now in this case, what will happen? This is called as domain naming system. The same IP address will be mapped to a name, and that name is known as domain naming service. What happens in this? It is read from right to left. That means what? There'll be a specialized domains for specialized types of sites. For example, ORG stand for organization. For educational websites, we have a domain called as edu. For Indian related, we have IN. For UK related, we have UK. So anyway, all these things must be covered to you. So it will come to this, and from there it will travel to left side. So domain naming service is a service which is available in the internet. What happens is it describes a machine's location on a namespace from right to left. DNS maps names to numbers. So actually, internet knows IP address. It will get connected through IP address. But since IP addresses are not easily remembered, people remember names of the websites or URL, and those names are converted to IP addresses using domain naming service. So Java supports both TCP and UDP protocols. TCP is used for connection oriented, UDP is used for connection less. Now, which are the, for Java networking, we make use of the package. Now we are starting with the technical points of networking. Java has one package called as java.net. Now this package has many classes. Now we are going to learn each of these classes. Some of the classes are important. For example, inet address class, we have one journal program based on it. And then we have socket. In socket, again, there are different types. So anyways, so let us learn some of the important classes. Here we have just listed java.net package contents, that is the classes which are contained in java.net package. The class names are, one name is inet address, then there is inet 6 address, inet 4 address, then there is server socket, socket address, internet socket address, and then there is socket also, and URI. Along with URI, there is also URL, Uniform Resource Locator. So these are the classes. Apart from the classes, java.net package also contains interfaces. Some of the interfaces are cookie policy, socket options, and cookie store. Anyway, we are not going to study these interfaces in details. We will only study the classes. So let us start from the first class. Our first class is inet address. The inet address class is used to encapsulate or bind in the sense combine together. What it combines? It combines the numerical IP address and the domain name for that particular address. For example, my name is Vaishali Kale and my roll number is suppose 211. So my name along with the roll number becomes one complete packet, and that packet is known as inet address. So similarly, every computer is known by some domain name and it is known by the IP address. So one of the thing is sufficient to be called, but then when both the things are combined, that is IP address as well as the domain name of that particular machine, then both these combined together are known as inet address. Clear? So anyway, how do we write what is inet address? It is a class used to bind together both the numerical IP address and the domain name of a PC. Users interact with inet address class using the name uh, or, yeah, there is some mistake here, name or an IP address of the host. I have given you the notes. Please make the correction here. Users interact with inet address class by using the name or an IP address of the host, which is more convenient. Yeah, actually it is not using the name. Wait. Maybe the earlier one was making some sense. Using the name of host, which is more convenient and understandable than its IP address. So normally whenever users communicate with inet address, they like for example, for me also, to instead of remembering the roll numbers, I'll be remembering the names of the students. But internally those names are converted to IP address, and I mean names are converted to roll number. So similarly here, because it is easy to call the PCs by the names, we will be remembering the names, but internally the DNS, that is domain naming service, will connect it to IP address. The inet address class hides the number inside, so it will show the name outside and the number, IP address number, will be inside. inet address class can handle both IPv4 and IPv6 addresses. Now to work with inet address, we need to make or create the object of it, isn't it? So how to create inet address object? Should we create like this? Inet address, suppose IN or IA, let us call, equal to new inet address. So if we have to call like this, then I must have a constructor, isn't it, in the class? Then only I can create an object with the new keyword. New means it will call a constructor. But this inet address class doesn't have any constructors. Then how to create the object? So for creating object, this inet address class makes use of special methods which are known as factory methods. So what are factory methods? So please remember, sometimes this definition is asked. Factory methods are the special static methods. So remember, I repeat, factory methods are the special static methods. Static methods means what? They are called by the class name. They belong to the class, not to the individual objects. So factory methods are the static methods in a class. What do they return, those methods? These methods return an instance or the object of the same class. So these methods of the class, for example, these methods belong to 4B class only. What do they return? These methods return the object of 4B class. So using these factory methods, we are going to create the object of inet address class. So let us know which are those factory methods by which we can create the object of inet address class. There are three methods. In fact, there are four methods. Three are given in the textbook. Fourth one I have added myself from the internet. So the first factory method is get localhost. This get localhost method, this creates or this returns an inet address object, but it contains both the name and IP. So as we have seen that inet address class is a combination of IP address and name together. So this get localhost will give me an inet address object that represents the localhost. So for example, when I use get localhost, suppose if I use here get localhost like this, let me write the example here only. So I'll create inet address IA. Suppose this is inet address object. How will I create? By calling get localhost. Now get localhost is um, it is a static method. So whenever we use static method, we have to use it along with the class name. What is the class name? Inet address. So inet address dot get local host. So when I use this method, get localhost, open and close bracket, it doesn't accept any parameter. You can see in the syntax, no parameter is there. So when I call this method will give me the object, but this object will be connected to which IP address? It will be connected to my machine. So local machine. For example, when I execute this statement from my machine, so my machine's IP address and my machine's name will be attached to this object called as IA. So down in the program, we have used this and we have also demonstrated how it will show the output. So this is the first factory method. Is it clear? What is the name of the method? Get localhost. This method will return the inet address object, but it will contain the IP address and name of the local host, local machine. Then there is second method called as get by name. Now this get by name is again a factory method, which is again a static method. So this method get by name accepts one parameter. Which parameter it accepts? I must pass the host name, then it is going to return me the IP address of, it is going to return me the inet address object for that host name, and it will add an IP address along with that. For example, it is like this. So I'll write an example. I may take the same till here. Object of name of the object I'll keep the same. The method will change now, get by name, but here I have to pass the host name. So host name may be suppose I'll say google.com. So google.com is the host name whose IP address and the domain name both will be combined together, and it will return the inet address object. So this object will contain the IP address as well as domain name of which website? Google.com. So get by name accepts the name as parameter and it returns the inet address object for that provided name. Clear? So this is the second factory method. Similarly, here I have the third factory method. Now, before that, let us know that on the internet, many of the times, a single name is used to represent many machines. Like, for example, when I say Gokte College BCA department, as you all know that our lab is there in the library building, our theory classes are there in our, now at least we have HOD room and theory classes in the same building. But earlier, in the last semester, what was the case? We had HOD room and staff room in the main building. We had classes in the BCA building and we had lab. So for example, when we say where is BCA department, then we would show all the three places, isn't it, earlier? So that means what? BCA section was scattered at three places. So when we say BCA section, it would show all the three buildings. So similarly on the internet, sometimes what happens, even now, when I say google.com, you know, Google doesn't store entire information on single PC. They may have chains of PCs like this. So I'll show you with the help of a notation. So Google might have many servers which are dedicated because the information is so huge. On Gmail, so many lakhs of people have their accounts. So it may not be sufficient that everyone's information is saved on the same. So what Google does is, it has stored many PCs which are connected with each other, and whenever the data is sent for that particular mail address, automatically it goes to that server. It is their internal arrangement. We need not bother right now. So understand that when we say google.com, all these PCs are known by google.com only. So when I say google.com, if I say get by name, one of the PC's IP address will come from when we use the second method. But suppose if we want to know all these PCs which are under google.com. So when I say google.com, I want to know all the PCs IP addresses which are connected to this same name. So it is here. Let us read it. Many of the times a single name is used to represent many machines. So if we want to know all those IP addresses, we make use of get all by name. So get all by name is a factory method which returns an array means what? Group of INET address objects. So it returns multiple addresses that are connected to the same name, that is google.com. Clear with that? So get all by name. So whenever I specify a particular name, so I can take the same example here. Only we will change the method. So here we are making use of the method get all by name. So instead of get by name, I just have to say get all by name. And then when I pass google.com, so whatever IP addresses are connected to google.com, under that name, there could be multiple machines. All those machines' IP addresses along with the domain names. So that means multiple INET address objects will be returned. So here I must say it returns an array. So I have indicated with the help of array. So it will store each one under the array index. So this is the third factory method. Fourth factory method is get by address. When I specify a particular IP address, it is going to identify the PC which has got that IP address, and it will return the INET address object related to that particular PC. So here also both we can use IPv4 or IPv6 addresses. So to demonstrate that, we have made use of one example. We have imported java.net package. Then I have class name as Java INET address class. I can't use the name INET address because it's a keyword. So I've just used it as JNet address, INET address. I have main method. So, and then as you all know that each of this method has throws an unknown host exception. Suppose if it cannot find the host which we have specified, may it be localhost or whatever may be the website name, if it doesn't find, then it is going to throw one exception called as unknown host exception. So instead of having try and catch for each one, what we have done, we have written throws to the main method only, so that we need not write it every now and then. So it is required that we have to throw unknown host exception. Now let us create INET address object. So we can create by using any of the factory methods. So we have used 3 factory methods here. The first object, whose name is address1, is created using which method? Get localhost. This is the first factory method. As you all know, get localhost is going to return me the INET address object which stores the IP address and domain name of the local PC. So when I print this address 1, look at the output, how it prints. So since this program was executed on my machine and my machine name was Vaishali, so it is returned the domain name of my PC, that is Vaishali PC, and IP address of my machine is this 192.168.43.208. This is the IP address of my machine. So together it is called as INET address object, which stores the IP address and also the machine name, domain name. Clear with that? Understood this output? How did we got this output? How did we get? By using get localhost. So get localhost will return me INET address object, which stores the IP address as well as the machine name of my PC. Clear with that? Now let us look at the second. Now, second, we are trying to display IP address of the website specified by the user. So here we have passed the parameter as www.herbertshield.com. You know, Herbert Shield is the author name of our Java book. So for that, here we have created an object INET address, and the object name we have given as address2. Even this object can be created by the factory method, which is static. So we have given the class name. The factory method name is get by name, which accepts the parameter as the name of the website, and it returns the INET address, which is a combination of the website name as well as IP address. So here it returns both again www.herbertshield.com and IP address as 216.92.65.4. So this is the IP address of the website herbertshield.com. Is it clear? It is not printing IP address. I have just written it there. Otherwise, it will show the same output like this, herbertshield.com, and this IP address it will show. Now third method is get all by name, and I have particularly passed google.com. Remember that all the websites may not have multiple website addresses. Only Google has. There are some websites which will have. So I passed get all by name, which is going to return me the array of the IP address INET address object. To print this, I have taken the loop till that array length. It will continue and it will print individual names. So you can see Google is associated with so many IP address on all these machines. Clear about this program? So today we have learned INET address class. It can be created by using 3 factory methods. So now since time is up, we'll stop. We'll continue in the next class. If you have any doubts, you can place in the chat.